Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name's Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well on this Wednesday afternoon. We're halfway through the week. I'm super excited to get to the weekend, relax, redo my office. I have big plans for my office, and I can't wait to start tackling those this weekend. If you are joining me live today on Behance, whether it's Wednesday or possibly even Thursday in your part of the world, let me know who you are and where you're tuning in from. We've got Eric and Cheryl and Ella and Sam and Kita, Kareem, Islam, Susan. Who else do we have? Kim, and oh no, my camera just shut off. Uh-oh. Well, hopefully you can still hear me. Give me a second. Okay, it's maybe coming back on. Possibly. I'm not sure. We may go camless today. That's very awkward, isn't that? Okay, I'm going to turn this off for a moment. I'm going to let this camera rest. So while that camera is resting, I'm going to hop over to my screen and I'm going to hide that camera feed. It's always fun live streaming, right? And we're just going to dive into the Daily Creative Challenge today. And a big hello to everyone who has been joining us over the last few days. Again, if you're just hopping in here, my camera just decided to stop working. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's just an audio only stream today. I'll let the camera rest. Maybe it was overheating. I'll let it rest for a few seconds. I'll turn it back on and I'll see if I pop back up. But behance.net/challenge/XD. Head over there for all the information on the Daily Creative Challenge. And there's a big blue register button at the top. If you haven't pressed that yet, go ahead and press it so you're notified when new challenges are released. And a very quick overview of how this works. So every single day, Monday to Friday, except the first Monday, you're going to receive a challenge. And we run these in 2-week spurts. So this week and next week, we have a challenge with me as your host, and then we will have another host right after that. You can join us in our Discord community chat. We have over 55,000 designers in Discord. That's a lot of people. So hop in there, have a good time. You get all the information about the daily challenges. And as a reminder, there's a little bit of a different challenge going on yesterday. So you can hop back in, grab that starter file as well. And if you use the keyword XD Creative Challenge, a little bit different than usual, only for yesterday's challenge, then we're going to take a look. Matt Ray's going to take a look at a bunch of the challenges, and he's going to be interviewing one of you. So make sure it's unique, have fun with it. Enjoy the challenges. You can ask questions, you can share tips and tricks. I did just release a new video on prototyping covering all the prototyping features in XD, and Corny was gracious enough to post that in the chat. So, what are we tackling today? Well, yesterday we tackled a landing page. We used a little bit of a background blur to add a little bit of depth. And then today we're going to be tackling interactive maps. I don't know, I keep looking at the camera as if all of you can see me, but again, my camera's not working, so maybe I'll boot it back up in a second to see if it's calmed down a little bit. Today we're going to be tackling interactive maps, and we're going to be using scroll groups to make them interactive, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on Get Started, which is going to launch this web page, and I'll be able to open up the file directly. It's going to download it through the Creative Cloud desktop app. This is a new process that we're doing, and it's going to launch the file. It's launching it on my second monitor. There we go. And here is our template. We have some inspiration down here at the bottom. A fantastic template that Andrea Hawk created with using component state. So you can dive in here and you can just cycle through these various states to get resources. Let me go ahead, and now that I'm inside of this file, I'm going to try turning back on my camera. So hopefully you can see me. Give it a second to boot up, but I'm going to jump in here and we are going to look at, the monitor on my camera doesn't seem to be doing very much, which is interesting. What happened there? I don't know. I guess we're going camless today. I apologize for that. Anyways, so what we're going to do, let me press this one more time to see what's going on. Nope, doesn't seem to be working. Oh well. All right, so what we're going to be doing, we're going to be creating a map using Adobe XD, and we are going to be using scroll groups. Hey Robert, welcome, and Christian, and Julian, and Asama, and everyone else joining me. Great to see all of you. I know you can't see me, but I will figure out the camera issue for tomorrow's stream. It's never happened. Well, it's happened once or twice during the longer streams. Oh, it's doing something. We might be in luck, people. We might be in luck. All right, let's try. Oh, okay, there I am. I don't know how long this is going to last for, but usually this happens when it starts overheating, but it hasn't been on for very long. But anyways, hi, I'm back. Hello, everyone. So we're going to start creating this map, and we're going to be using, I might be a bit biased, but we're going to be using one of my favorite plugins, the Fancy Maps plugin. So what I'm going to do first, I have got this artboard over here, and I want to start by just dragging out a rectangle. So with the rectangle tool over in the tools panel to the left, I'm going to draw one out right across my artboard, just like that. Very simple, right? And just so you can see it, I'm going to change the color. Doesn't matter what color it is because we're going to be filling that in a second. And what I want to think about as I'm designing this is how much of this map is going to be accessible when scrolling takes place. So knowing that, let me actually move this artboard over. Knowing that, I'm going to hold down my Alt or Option key and just select the shape and then drag this out like that, just so I have a little bit extra room on the sides. And I'm also going to do the same thing for the top and bottom. Just like that. Oh, no, there goes the camera again. Okay, I'm going to turn this off just so we don't have a black box. And yeah, I will figure that out for tomorrow. But anyways, we will continue. At least we have audio. Everyone's saying welcome back. Nope, too late. All right, so we've got our shape looking pretty good. And essentially, again, we want to be able to scroll outside of the shape, but we also want some content inside of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into my plugins panel, which is down here at the bottom, and I'm going to click on that, and I've got all my plugins installed already. If you don't have plugins installed, I'm going to go ahead and press the plus button at the top. We've got our plugins panel, window, whatever you want to call it. And you can look through a bunch of different plugins. We've got some great plugins lists, UI faces, undraw, but also if you go here and look up maps, you'll be able to download the Fancy Maps plugin right there. Look at that, 5 stars. And fun fact, I designed this plugin on Adobe Live, right here on Adobe Live during one of my master classes, and it was developed by Walter Camaro. So I'm going to hop into the Fancy Maps plugin. And we have a few different options. We can choose a surprise destination, or we can choose a popular destination. Tokyo, Barcelona, Paris, Bali, Brisbane, a lot of different places. You can also enter in a specific location down at the bottom. So if you want a specific address or your hometown, you can enter it down here. Let's go ahead and choose surprise destination, see what we get. And we got Memphis, Tennessee, very exotic. And then you can also choose the zoom level. So let's go ahead, and since this is kind of focused on running and friends and seeing what they're doing fitness wise, I'm gonna zoom it in a little bit, and then you have a bunch of different styles. So light styles, dark styles. We all love dark mode, right? Some blue styles and pink styles, a lot of different styles. Ariana says, love this Maps plugin. Me too. Again, might be a bit biased. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. It has a nice little green tint to it, and I'm simply going to press Apply Map. And there we go. I've got my map. And of course I can double click and move this around if I needed to, but that looks pretty good. Now, of course, whenever you're talking about maps and social applications, there's always something else on these maps, right? And there might be a path. In this particular case, it's focused on running. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my pen tool over here in the tools bar, and I'm going to start. Let's say I'm going to draw out the path that this individual is running. So I'm just going to just go through. Maybe they went down this street here, over here, maybe down here, over, right, and just kind of follow this path down to here. And that looks pretty good, right? Now what I'm going to do is I want to make this nice and thick so that it can be seen on this map. So I'm going to increase the size over in the Properties Inspector, just like that. Laura says, are you planning on having AR or augmented reality challenges soon? Yes. So I think it's possibly next week we're going to be covering some AR workflows. So stay tuned for that. And then for the border color, I want a nice blue border. Nice vibrant blue. That looks pretty good right about there. And of course, if I wanted to, I can round out the caps, but the caps aren't really going to be seen, so I'm not too worried about that. And now we have our line, which looks pretty good. So this is the path that either you or your friends have taken. Now, there may be a few additional things you may want on this particular path, right? You may want the starting point, and we may want the ending point. Aditya says, give the line a shadow maybe. Possibly. You can definitely do that as well. So I'm going to start with the starting point. I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and draw one out. Maybe we started up here. Give me a nice green dot. And I'm going to make sure to change the color to green up at the top. And then to really make sure we can see it against the blue and the potentially green map in the background, I am going to add a border. It's going to be a nice white border. Thicken that up a little bit. And to Aditya's point, we may want a shadow to kind of separate it from the background. So I'm going to turn on shadow right down here. Maybe I'll bump it out a little bit. I'm going to really blur it quite a bit. You don't want a super harsh shadow, right? You don't want something like this. It's a little bit of an eyesore. So instead, I'm going to just keep the opacity fairly low. If you want to get a bit fancy, you can add a little bit of color, but we may not need that. And then one more thing we might want to add, I'm actually going to duplicate this shape, Command and Control D, and I'm going to bring that on up. I can turn off the border. I'm going to move it back. So I can either drag it in my layers panel or use the shortcut and then just drop this opacity a little bit. Just so we have a little bit of almost like a radar going on, right? Perfect. Now we may want one more. Maybe I'm going to just drop this to about 15%. And I'm going to duplicate this down towards the bottom. And this is going to be the ending point. So all I'm going to do here is just change the red or change the green to red. And I had both of those objects selected. And because they used the same shade of green, I was able to change both of those greens at the exact same time, which is great. And just to keep my sanity in place, I'm going to group these. This will be called end. And I'm going to group these, and this will be called start. There we go. Perfect. And that's looking pretty good, right? So we've got that looking okay. And one thing we might want as well is to show where our friends are on this particular path. And Marcia is saying, could the map have points of interest rather than a running route? Absolutely. So if you are participating in this challenge or any of these challenges, you can take it in whichever direction you feel you want to take it in. So if you don't want to do running or you want to do, points of interest, I'm going to show you how to create a location pin in just a moment. Feel free to do that. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool one more time, and maybe this user is at this location. So we're going to pop that right about there. Maybe we'll give the same white fill. Now, of course, you can't see it right now because it's on a white shape as well. But I may want an avatar inside of this shape. So there's a few ways we can do it. We can go over to Finder, and I've got some great looking images here. Of course, Mr. Beardman that I use in a lot of my streams. We can just drag him directly in here and it'll fill it just like that. And let's go ahead and give it a little bit of a shadow just like we did on the other ones. That looks pretty good. You can also grab an image from your library. So if I hop over to my libraries panel and go back to my Toy Faces library, I love these amazing toy faces. I can just drag these directly in, and there we go. We've got another user. And maybe I'll just drag one more over here, and yellow background, and maybe one more up here, and maybe the red background, right? There we go. So we've got some users running along this path. All right. So it's getting there. Things are getting there. Let me try turning my camera on one more time to see if this boots up. I'm not expecting very much, but oh, it's doing something. It's probably not going to last very long, but maybe you can see me for a few seconds. All right, so we've got that looking pretty good. And now going off of Marcia's point about points of interest, we may want to include something like that on our map, right? So here's how, there's two ways you can create, there's many ways you can create points. Nope, the camera doesn't work. Okay, that's fine. It's stubborn today. So one way you can do it, you can grab your ellipse tool over in the tools bar, drag one out like that, right? Let's give it a nice red color. I can actually just press the I key on my keyboard and sample this red color down here. And what I want is, you're probably all familiar with the traditional pin color or pin shape, right? What I want is this area down here to kind of protrude downwards. So I'm going to double click on this ellipse just like that to access the paths or the points. And then selecting this one at the bottom, I'm just going to kind of pull it down like that. Now, of course, that looks a little bit strange. This curve on the side is way too far out. So I can either grab these, and I'm holding down Shift to constrain it, and pull these in, or what I can do if I want a nice straight line is simply double click on this point at the bottom, and we now have sort of our pin, right? But a lot of these pins have cutouts in the center. So here's how you do that. I'm going to grab my ellipse tool and draw one out right about here. That looks pretty good. Right there. And I want to make sure that both of these are selected. So I have this one selected. I'm going to hold down my Shift key and I'm going to click on the pin in the background. So now they're both selected. And then right at the top right-hand corner, we've got our Boolean options. So we can add, subtract, intersect, all that fun stuff. But we want to subtract, which is going to take that top shape and cut it out from the shape behind it, just like that. And now we've got this fun little pin, right? And we can place this pretty much anywhere we want on our map. Now, there's another way we can create a pin. This one's a little bit more fancy, sort of, depending on what kind of pins you like. I'm going to grab the ellipse one more time, draw one out like that, right? And then for this one, we're actually going to give it a little bit of depth by creating or adding on a radial gradient. So I'm going to choose radial gradient just like that. And I want the top color, or the color in the middle, to be some of a lighter red. And then the color at the bottom, or on the outer side, is going to be a little bit of a darker. Very slight. Again, you don't want, very similar to shadow, you don't want to go too harsh, because if you go something like this, it looks a little bit unnatural. You want very subtle. Then you can also grab this point and move it to determine where that light is coming from. So it's coming from this direction, right? Kind of down here. So there's a nice highlight up here, and then we have a nice shadow along the side. And then in addition to this, we can grab our line tool from the side and then drag this down. I'll bump this up in size just like that. Maybe I'll make it a nice gray color. I can round out the caps and make sure that it's behind this shape. So again, you can do that in your layers panel, or you can just kind of use the shortcuts. A lot of different ways to do that, and just make sure this is centered. And that looks pretty good. I may actually want to tweak this color just a little bit so the shadow, again, is not super harsh. Just like that. There we go. Perfect. Now, if you want to get a little even fancier, you can add a bit of a shadow. So I can duplicate both of these layers. So I'll duplicate this one. I'll adjust this like that. And I'll duplicate this over here. Make sure both of these are behind these shapes, right? Just like that. And then I'll want to change the color of both to a pure black. So there's black there, and there's black there. And then on both of these, I can go ahead and choose object blur. So it's kind of hiding underneath the background blur. So I can press on that down arrow and choose object blur. And you don't want a super harsh object blur in this case, so maybe 2 looks pretty good. And then for this one, you'll want to do the same thing, object blur, and then we'll change it to 2. Now this is very harsh, right? So we're going to drop the opacity to, let's say, 10%. I can use the 1 key on my keyboard to drop it, maybe 20%. Very subtle, right? You don't want your shadows too harsh. And if we take a look at the preview at the top right-hand corner, we've got this fun-looking little shadow going on, right? Maybe 15%. Really fine-tune that. And I can group all these objects and call this pin. There we go. Perfect. And that looks pretty good. I'm kind of digging that one. I think I like this one more than this one. And what you can also do, you can dive in here and maybe add a little bit of a shadow underneath here, right? Just like this. Drop that in size and just kind of have fun with this until you get the result that you're looking for. Make it a little bit longer. There we go. Fancy. Digging it. All right. So there is the pin that you're looking for, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually hide this one because I'm not digging that one, but I do like this one over here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just start placing some of these pins all around the map. And in specific, I want to make sure to place some of them outside of the visible bounds of this particular artboard, right? So I might want to place one all the way, even though this doesn't make any sense because we got water out here, I'm going to place a pin right over here. Now, did you notice what happened? As I tried to place that pin, it kind of disappeared. It popped onto the pasteboard. And that's by design, right? If you take an object off an artboard, it's going to naturally go into the pasteboard. So what you can do in this case is I'm going to select these two pins. I'm going to pop them into a group. So Command and Control G, and I'm going to call this pins. And now if I dive into this group and then move one off of the artboard just like this, right? It's going to stay on the artboard. It's going to stay within that group because it's grouped with additional items that are part of this artboard, that are on the visible artboard, right? So I can continue doing this and just put a few additional pins all over the place. And in a future stream, we're going to be talking about component states, which you'll be able to add to this map as well. All right, so what we've done now is we've created our map and we've created all these elements that we want included on the map as scrolling takes place. So what you'll want to do is make sure all of those objects are selected. So in the layers panel, I'm going to go ahead and select the first object, hold down my shift key and select the last object, which is essentially everything that we've created so far, but you might have other things that you don't want included in this scroll group. With all of these selected, we're going to head over to the right within our properties inspector, and we have these three options. We have our horizontal scroll, vertical scroll, and also horizontal and vertical scroll, which will let you pan around. And it's perfect for a situation like a map. So I'm going to go ahead and press that. And what you're noticing is that it did an amazing job at snapping to the bounds of the artboard. And if you needed to, if you don't want it all the way to the edge, you can grab these handles on the left, right, top, and bottom and move them on in if you needed to. But I do like them right on the edge. And with that done, all you have to do now is press the play button at the top and scroll away. And you can access all the pins that are on the side, and everything stays in place because the entire thing is scrolling, which looks fantastic, right? Now, of course, from here, you can add in additional elements just to kind of get your creative juices going. I can grab my rectangle tool, maybe add a box right over here. And this might be something that pops up to show some additional friends that might be running on this course or track, right? Whatever you want to call it. Path, that's the one. I might want to round out these corners a little bit. Let's go for 30 pixels, but I don't want the corners at the bottom to be rounded. So I'm going to hold down my Alt-Option key and drag these on back, just like that. I don't need a border, but I may want to sample this blue color, just like that. There we go. And then let's go ahead and type out currently running. And I'm going to change the typeface to Sophia Pro. Let's make it nice and bold. Change the color to white so it stands out really nicely. Pop that in the center. Let's go for 24 pixels. Beautiful. And then down below, we may want a list of our friends. So I'm going to grab my ellipse tool, draw one out just like this, give a little bit of breathing room. And then for this, we're going to talk more about repeat grids in a future challenge, but to very quickly add additional, actually, you know what? I'm going to add a name. I'm going to change this to about medium, make this nice and small like that, center it. All right, there we go. So now we have a profile picture and a name. I'm going to select both of those and then hit the repeat grid button right at the top right about there, right? Boop, there we go. And there's the boop animation. So I'm going to go ahead and drag out some additional friends going across this artboard. I'm going to drag these out, add a little bit more spacing. And now the big question is, how do we get additional content in here? Well, similar to what I showed you earlier, we can hop over to Finder. We can grab some images and just drag them directly into any of these boxes. We can also use our amazing UI or toy faces. I'm going to just select a bunch of these, drag them directly in. And for names, you can definitely use a plugin as well, but I do have a plain text document with some names, and I can just drag these onto any text layer within the repeat grid. But of course, these names are very long and we don't have space for that. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it at name. And then from here, you can also select the repeat grid. Just like we did with the map, you can enable a scroll group as well. So in this case, it might be a horizontal scroll group, just like that. And I'm going to dive in here. I'm actually going to add a bit of a border to these faces so that they stand out from the background. And now if I play one more time, we can scroll over to the right and the left. We can also pan around our map just like that. So that will just about wrap it up. I am not going to switch back over to the larger screen because my camera still hasn't turned back on. So big thank you to everyone who has joined me today. Jillian and Marcia and Ariana and Ankita, Aditya. So there's Ankita and Aditya. All right. Kim and Sam, everyone else. Yeah, Ariana says, I forgot you can do that with just a regular text file. Indeed, you can. Again, I apologize for the camera and technical difficulties. I will have that resolved hopefully by tomorrow's stream. But participate. Share your work in Discord and on Behance. And I will see you all, I almost said bright and early, but sometime in tomorrow afternoon. Thanks, everyone.